It isn't safe. It can't be controlled. Magic cannot be used.
What is up, and welcome back. It's Scovos, and with the full release of Spellbreak, I'm sure there's plenty of us out there experimenting with different talents, classes, and builds to best suit our playstyle. Now, in the last video I uploaded, it was on the Frostborn support build, which is very team-oriented. Now, maybe you're a solo player, queuing by yourself, or just feel like dealing tons of damage and feeling like the Juggernaut. Well, this video will be the one for you. It is going to be a Stoneshaper tank build that can deal tons of damage up close and personal, and roll through several opponents in a single fight. So first and foremost, for a Stoneshaper build, we are going to want to select the Stoneshaper class. Now before we lock that in, look to the bottom right hand side of your screen. That's where your talents are located. These are changed individually per class, so make sure you set them up accordingly. Now, for talents, we have the three categories: mind, body, and spirit. For the mind category, for this build, we will be grabbing the Harmony talent. The Harmony talent is unlocked by getting Toxicologist to rank 6, and makes you immune to slow, freeze, and shock. Along with Harmony granting you these immunities, you also start with a 5% damage reduction at level 0, at level 1 will be 7%, level 2 will be 10%, and at level 3 it will grant you a 15% damage reduction. This will tremendously increase your survivability and allow you to stay up close and personal during these fights for longer periods of time. The next category is going to be body, and for this talent we will be selecting Scavenging. To unlock Scavenging, you will need to get Conduit or the Lightning class to rank 6. And this allows us to restore health and armor after every single exile. At level 0 will be 25, level 1 will be 30, level 2 35, level 3 will give us 50 health and 50 armor back after every single exile. As you can imagine, as long as you're exiling opponents, staying up close and personal on flat terrain, you are almost completely unstoppable, hence the name the Juggernaut build. So the last category is going to be the Spirit talent. For this talent, we will be grabbing Recklessness, which is unlocked by getting Frostborn to rank 6. This talent allows us to deal extra spell damage at a reduced cost when we have no armor. At level 0 will be 15% increased damage and a minus 15% spell cost. At level 1 will be 18 and 18, level 2 will be 20 and 20, and level 3 will be a 25% spell damage increase and a 25% mana cost reduction. So since this build is focused on being up close and personal and dealing tons of damage to your opponent, you'll be attacking a lot and probably taking quite a bit of damage. So if you do take enough damage to run out of armor, you're probably in a sticky situation. So this will allow you to deal significantly more damage and attack or maneuver much more with that 25% mana cost reduction. So if you do get into a situation where you have no armor, just remember that you'll deal significantly more damage and have a lot more mana to play around with. And if you manage to exile an opponent, you'll activate the Scavenging perk, which will grant you up to 50 health and armor back instantly. And just a reminder, one of the inherent perks of the Stoneshaper class allows you to regain armor at 5 per swing as long as you're below 20, so make sure you attack and get your armor up to 20 before using any shields, and in the middle of battles you'll constantly be gaining armor back as long as you're still attacking. So whenever you're playing this build and trying to decide which rune you want to use, just remember that you will need to be able to close gaps very quickly. This build is up close and personal, so keep that in mind, especially in areas where the terrain can interrupt your basic attacks as the Stoneshaper. So the recommended runes for this will be Dash, Spring Step, or Flight. These allow quick mobility and allow you to engage or disengage very quickly if you need to. Personally, I like the Flight rune just because it's going to be a further distance than Dash and Spring Step. You can fly straight at opponents, land next to them, and start attacking, or you can use it to escape if you need to. So if you're not using the Flight rune or it's on cooldown, the Stoneshaper's biggest weakness is going to be enemies engaging at a range. You can use Boulder Fall to keep pressure on enemies to engage or escape as you need, but a secondary gauntlet to make up for this is going to be a very strong choice and definitely viable options, such as the Lightning or Wind, which allow for high attack speeds and don't consume too much mana, allowing you to attack and stay in the fight for longer periods of time. The Lightning Gauntlet can stun your opponents, disabling most of their abilities. The Wind Gauntlet can use the Tornado, allowing you to hold them still for longer periods of time. The Frost Gauntlet could also be used to freeze enemies and snipe them at a distance, but is very mana consuming. So all of those gauntlets are going to be a very good choice, and realistically there's not going to be a bad choice as a secondary gauntlet for this build, because you're mostly going to be using the Stoneshaper's attack. Use whatever gauntlet most complements your playstyle that you already have, at least until you become accustomed to the Stoneshaper build, if you aren't already. But I highly recommend at least trying out my personal favorite secondary gauntlet, which is going to be the Fire Gauntlet. So if you decide to take up my suggestion and try out the Fire Gauntlet as your offhand, just remember that you can throw up the firewall at any point in time to block most incoming enemy projectiles. So not only is the Fire Gauntlet awesome, but the main reason I choose it is because it really does complement the Stoneshaper build. When you throw that firewall up to deflect projectiles, you can attack through it to ignite your basic Stoneshaper attacks. This will also leave a fire trail on the ground, which deals damage over time. So if your opponent decides to stand still for whatever reason, or walk back through it, they will take ticks of fire damage. This gives you an insane amount of zone control, almost entirely blocking areas off. If they do decide to walk through it or stand in it, then it just makes for an easy kill, which will grant you back that armor and health. So for a very effective overall strategy, using the Fire Gauntlet as your secondary for this Juggernaut Stoneshaper build is going to be flying up in the air or towards your opponent, hurling your Boulder Fall or both Boulder Falls at your enemy, trying to ignite it, and if you can ignite the Boulder Fall, it leaves a dot on the ground, so damage over time for a fire area of effect. If you manage to pull this off, they've already taken a minimum of about 50 damage. So at this point you could throw up a firewall to block incoming projectiles, attack with your basic attack from Stoneshaper through the firewall to leave more fire on the ground. If you hit them with the basic Stoneshaper attack, that's going to be significant amounts of damage, which also grants you armor back if you're below 20. If you manage to pull off an exile, you'll get up to 50 health and 50 shield back instantly, as well as taking the reduced damage, and if your armor does run out, you'll deal more damage and cost less mana for any attacks that you're using. So overall, if you're an aggressive player and like to push fights, as well as being rewarded for dealing damage to opponents, exiling enemies, and taking damage yourself, as well as throwing flaming boulders through the sky at anyone who opposes you, this build is probably the one for you. So that's going to wrap up today's video, but wait, before you click away, clicking that subscribe button really does help me out and support my channel quite a bit. If you like this video in particular, click the thumbs up. If you didn't like it, you're also more than welcome to click the thumbs down. But whether you did click or didn't click anything I mentioned, I still hope you have a good evening, afternoon, morning, night, or whatever it is wherever you are. But thank you for stopping by, and I hope to see you in one of my next videos.